Hello, everyone, and welcome to IdiotSpeak Podcast, episode number 9.
Nine, mein Freunde.
So, since Nintendo didn't talk about this at E3, I think today we're going to be talking about the Zelda for the Wii U.
Yay!
Which might actually be Zelda for the NX and Wii U, because that's why I think it's being pushed off.
Yeah, me too. Which I guess is okay, because you gotta have a strong title come out with the NX, and that would be its strongest title to come out with the NX.
Well, and it's the same thing they did with the Wii and Twilight Princess. It came out on the Wii. Did it come out on GameCube on the same day, or was it like within a relatively short period of time after?
I don't remember, because that's the only Zelda game I haven't played. As weird as that is, that's the only one I haven't played.
And it's my favorite, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think it came out either on the same day or, like, within a couple weeks of the Wii version. And it was the first Wii game I got. Like, I got my Wii and Twilight Princess at the same time.
Yeah, and I think if Nintendo is smart, if they are going to go that way with it, I think they need to, like, it'll be on the NX first for 2 months. All right, so if you buy the NX,
it's exclusive to the
NX for 2 months. Then we'll roll out a Wii U. As long as you make that statement up front, like, it is coming to the Wii U, but it's going to be 2 months afterwards.
Play it first on the NX, and then get it on the Wii U later.
That sounds like PlayStation. Anyway, but I think that would be the way that they should go with that, because that would force people into the NX. Like, that would force me into the NX.
Right.
Like, well, now I got to get the NX because I'm not waiting fucking 2 months.
Exactly. I do think that is probably going to be their strategy.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't think they'd be upfront about it.
I don't know. I mean, I think they have to be, because they've confirmed that it's going to be on the Wii U. Like, they keep stressing that it's going to be on the Wii U. I mean, unless they make some kind of statement now, like, for the foreseeable future, this will only be an NX title as of now.
Right.
It's going to be on both. I think it's going to be confirmed it's going to be on both, but like you said, if they're smart, they'll do it an NX window of making it exclusive for a certain period of time, 2 months, whatever. Then, hey, you can now get it on the Wii U as well, or whatever they're going to do with that.
Yeah. So out of what we've seen, what do you like so far out of what we've seen?
Well, I like how, I think most people agree, is how big the world looks. Like, it is basically playing the first Zelda game, which is just open world. You can kind of do it in whatever order you want to a degree. That's the feeling, that's the feel that I'm getting from what they're showing. Like, you can kind of explore this giant world. And just from, like, little hints that they said, I don't think they flat out said it, they may have, but it feels like you can kind of do this game in whatever order you want. And
that's what it looked like.
Well, and I believe, to an extent, you could do that in, what was the last game? Link to the Past? Or Link Between Worlds. Link Between Worlds. I always get those two confused in my head. Because you could kind of, like, most Zelda games, you know, they've always been specific on, like, you have to get this item to get into this dungeon or to do this or whatever. With that game, I haven't played it, but from what I've seen and read, you go basically to a store and rent your item, and you can do any dungeon in any order.
Well, I know with A Link to the Past, the predecessor to that one, it was very open world as well.
It was, yeah.
But it made it so that you couldn't access certain things without having the same way Zelda always does. But Link to the Past was the first one that I felt was more of an open world one. It was kind of all over the place. It had basically, your screen was a set amount of space, and then you scrolled all the way to the side and you went to the next square, and when you looked at your map, it reflected that each square was the actual screen, and you could kind of go wherever as long as you had the right items and do whatever you wanted and access certain things. And there wasn't there was a set way that they wanted you to do the temples and stuff like that. But for the most part, there was a certain part, like, I think when you get to the Dark World in that one, that really it's like, okay, here's these 3 crystals, go get them.
Yeah.
It was go do whichever one you wanted to do first.
Right. I mean, and I do know for a fact you can play that game. Well, I mean, even the main part of that game out of order, because I've seen different people do dungeons in different order.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm hoping that's what they're going to do with this. I mean, I kind of liked how, I think Ocarina of Time was the first one to really set up this is the order that you do things. And I almost want to say that was like almost like a limitation issue. It was like, we can't figure out you could almost like do game breaking things if you get to this part too soon, so you have to do this in an order we've made for you, so that way you don't break the game, type thing. And I think
and that game was very cinematic, extremely cinematic and story based, and that you would screw up
exactly
how you were playing the game or the story of the game if you were to skip like if you didn't go to Death Mountain first, well, then you wouldn't know that what happened there and what's going on. And
I mean, you're meeting certain characters at certain points that you're supposed to meet them. You're supposed to have knowledge of things, and I mean, it like you said, it's very cinematic, and it would not have worked if you could kind of do it in whatever order you want. I know people have glitched out the game to kind of do it in whatever they want, but I think for that feel that they were going for, you had to do it the way they intended you to play it.
Yeah,
and I think pretty much every Zelda game after that, at least the 3D ones, have been that way, like Majora's Mask and Twilight and Skyward Sword, I believe, too. Or could you do that one?
Ooh, Skyward Sword I'm pretty sure was more linear than even some of the other ones, because that one dealt with you have to go up, you have to go down, you have to go up, you have to go down, and you were playing multiple things the same over and over again, and then you were going back in time to play the thing at the same thing. And
I mean, to me,
that one was extremely linear. I felt like you had to do exactly what you needed to do when you needed to do it, or you weren't going anywhere.
To me, Skyward Sword was kind of like the Metroid of Zelda, because you would have access to these 3 areas, and then as you got more items, you could go back to those 3. It was basically those 3 areas, and they kept growing every time you would get a new item. That's kind of what Metroid, like at least Metroid Prime and stuff, did, was you had very few areas, but then the more items you acquired, you could access more parts of those areas that you couldn't get to before.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just felt like they kind of started combining the styles with those two. And I like Skyward Sword, though.
Yeah, and I could see why they did it with Skyward Sword. They were really focused on the technology at that point. It was going to be the first game where you could swing a sword.
One-to-one motion sensor,
supposedly.
Sword. It worked for me.
All right, me being left-handed like the character is, I had so many problems because I turned my hand ever so slightly, and then if you hold it at an angle and try to go sideways, he'd do an diagonal thing, and I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted.
Well, and in the game, Link was right-handed. They changed him to be right-handed
because the majority of people are right-handed. Yeah,
so I could see how that would be weird and could screw some things up.
Yeah,
but it worked for me. I had no complaints with the motion controls, but I don't know. I think from what I've seen with this new game, I'll get your opinion on this, is it looks like it's going to be in a timeline based. It's going to be very close, either before or right after Skyward Sword, just from the way things look to me.
Like the way the character, the way Link looks.
The way Link looks, the way the world looked, it just felt like, and I believe, my brain is like, I've got so many Zelda games running through there. He used the sailcloth a few times.
Well, and from what I've heard, there's some other items that are making comebacks, like Rock's Feather and stuff like that. So I don't know how that's going to fit in. I don't know if... I did see the sailcloth because he jumps off like the cliff. Like he goes running towards the cliff and you're like, what the hell is he going to do? And he just jumps off and you're like, oh my god. And then he busts out the sailcloth.
Right.
Which really they've done in some of the other ones. Like Majora's Mask, you had that, but you had to be the plant, the Dooku.
The Dooku scrub.
In order to do it and different stuff like that.
Wind Waker had one too. Was it a leaf? Was it a leaf? Wind Waker?
I think so. Yeah, because you could either use the leaf to blow stuff, or you could jump off and carry the leaf.
It took magic or whatever to use.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. It from the look of it and just at least that item and just I don't know, just something about it. It felt like it was very close in timeline to Skyward Sword, so that means it's going to be very early in the Zelda timeline.
Well, yeah, and that kind of makes me think, because in Skyward Sword, spoiler alert if you haven't got to the end of it, you don't really fight Ganon at the end. You fight Demise, which is well,
it's like reference that he's a incarnation of Ganon.
Right, it's like Ganon's soul, basically. It's the essence of what makes Ganon is who you end up fighting.
Right.
And so that would be interesting to see if maybe this is going to be then, are we fighting the first Ganon? Like, is this going to be the first time that we actually see Demise come back as Ganondorf? I don't know. Because it felt like with Ocarina of Time, there was a big build up to that. Ganondorf was like the prophesized, he came from a group of women that had never had a male until he was the only male that came from them.
Or forever so many years. But.
Right, but the good thing about Zelda is they're always good at making up prophecy. It's like, just because this prophecy was fulfilled doesn't mean that there's not going to be another prophecy in the next game. So
I love the Zelda series, I love the games, but I really don't think they had any kind of plan when they were making these games. I think this whole there's a the timeline and it's written on a secret piece of paper.
Oh God!
I think that they're making this up as they go.
Yeah, if you get time, pull up the timeline and look at how convolutedly crazy it is.
What was it?
There's
the one branch and then it breaks into three.
Yeah, which is Link lives and saves the day. Link dies.
Yeah,
and then there's Link does nothing. Which is the weirdest timeline I've ever seen. Or he doesn't he doesn't succeed, but he doesn't die.
Something like that.
Something like that. He just doesn't succeed, but he doesn't die.
I was thinking it was Link fails, Link, and then the other two were Link wins, but it's the Link as a child.
Oh yeah,
and then Link as an adult.
Yeah, because Majora's Mask continues on him as a child, whereas the other one is he continues on as an adult from OOT.
I believe that's what. Anyway,
look it up. If it's a very interesting timeline.
And I'm sitting there looking at it the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, they had no idea what they were doing.
No, and I bought the Wind Waker. I'd already played Wind Waker on GameCube, but I bought the Wind Waker version of the Wii U when it came out, and I have the digital book that has the timeline and stuff on it, which is very neat. And if you get a chance, look that up too. But it's it's very interesting how they went from one place to another and how they came up with these things and where everything falls. Because to tell you the truth, I've looked up the timeline before, but I never knew where like some of the Game Boy games had fallen into place and all that kind of stuff. So.
I know several websites like before that book came out, they had like their ideas for what the timelines would be, and this was kind of like confirmed. And actually, there was a few that were really close, which is kind of amazing. But I really, and it's not a big deal to me. Like I don't care that the story makes very little to no sense. It really doesn't bother me as long as each individual game is good, which they usually are good.
Yeah.
The story doesn't bother me, but I'm curious of where they think this game will fit. Like, is it going to be... Because it seems like lately they've been doing, like, with Skyward Sword, it's very early. They've been doing a lot of very early games. And, like, Ocarina of Time was very early, and then you just keep going from there. And... I don't know. I'm curious. I do wonder is Ganon actually going to be in the game? Because, I mean, how many has he been in? Maybe it's time for a new villain?
Well, and... What I'm curious about is something that Skyward Sword did, which you kind of thought this might be the case. You thought that Zelda always had a protector and stuff like that, which she really doesn't in Wind Waker. But in most of the games, she has a protector. Skyward Sword, again, spoiler alert, kind of solidifies that she has a protector that is there reincarnating with them, which is Impa. So... I'm kind of curious to see if maybe they continue that too, and I just can't imagine them going with a different villain at this point, unless it's like, okay, this is right after you've killed Demise, so he can't come back into Ganon form for another lifetime, and now you're going and trying to clear out this world. Because the big thing about Skyward Sword was you were confined to this little area because nobody had lived back on Earth?
Well, Hyrule.
Back on Hyrule for thousands of years or whatever. They became the Sky People because the Earth went to hell, or Hyrule went to hell. So now is this Link coming down and being like, all right, well, now we have to live on Earth because the Skyloft fell in... Again, spoiler alert, sorry. Skyloft fell back down to Hyrule, so now we've got to, we have to live here, so this is Link trying to clean everything out.
And that very well could be, because, I mean, every scene we've seen of this game so far, of the new one, he's on, like, horseback, just out in the woods, almost looking like he's hunting things.
Yeah.
And that is something else I want to talk about. We haven't yet seen him have his sword in any of the single trailers.
He has it on his back, but
do we actually see it?
I'm pretty sure, but it's not the Master Sword.
I'd have to watch the footage again, but I do not remember seeing a sword in the slightest. I know in the first E3, or the only E3 trailer they've shown of it, it was him on the horse.
Are you talking about the cutscene running from?
Yeah,
we assume is a cutscene running from whatever's chasing him into the water or whatever.
Yeah, it may or may not be a cut. I'm assuming it's a cutscene, but they did say it was all in game. Like that's what it's going to look like, which good for that because I thought looked awesome.
Yeah, that did look amazing.
But this thing attacks him. He jumps off the horse, slow motion, shoots the arrow. Don't see a sword whatsoever on character at that point. And then the only other,
but at that point he's not even in the green tunic.
Well, in the footage they showed at that awards ceremony, which I can't think of the name of, when was it Miyamoto and Aonuma were playing?
Mm-hmm.
He was still in that blue thing that he was wearing.
Yeah, but tunic. Once they showed him in the sailcloth and everything like that, he was in the green tunic.
Was he? I didn't think he was.
I thought he was because that was what everybody got excited about. Was you didn't see his face or anything, but on the stuff behind Miyamoto and everything, it came walking up with the horse, and you could see Link sitting on the back of it. You couldn't see his face or anything, but you saw his green tunic and stuff. I thought pretty sure that
I might need to watch it again. I could be wrong, but I do not remember there being a green tunic. I do not remember seeing a sword. And I would be I would think he has to.
Yeah. Well, and then I know they focused on the really the bow and arrow so far through the entire thing, which is it slows down time when you jump off the horse.
Is awesome.
Yeah.
It's arrow time.
Which is neat. And then the whole horse don't run into trees thing, which is awesome. Which, by the way, I have seen a video of a horse running into a tree.
It happens.
Yeah, it does happen. But
that horse was drunk.
Yeah, maybe. They can't blame the horse for wanting to have a good time. Does that mean he walked into a bar with a long face? Anyway,
and metal shoes.
So I'm very excited for everything that they've showed so far. Do you think they're going to put anything in the game that's going to be like a throwback? Like I mentioned Rock's Feather. I had read somewhere that you're not going to be able to really jump in the game until you get Rock's Feather, and then you can do and that's way old school. That's Super NES and different stuff like that. You had to have Rock's Feathers to jump over the little holes and stuff like that.
I don't know. I mean, what have we seen? We've seen the bow and arrow, sailcloth. Is that all we've really seen item-wise?
Ooh, man.
There's binoculars at some point, but I mean, who knows if that's an item or you just have binoculars.
What, is it binoculars or is it a telescope thing?
Oh, well, whatever. Some sort of thing to zoom in on because, again, you can set your waypoints.
Yeah.
And, which I think, again, is really cool. Like, I like how, we have this giant map and you can set a waypoint instantly just by touching it.
Thank God.
Which I'm kind of sick of the Wii U gamepad just being used for a map, but it's perfect for this game.
Well, and here's the thing. If they're going to take the Wii U gamepad and do that, that's fine. What I want to see then is going into boss battles, there needs to be something you're doing on the pad during the boss battle. Maybe you need to slash him in a certain amount of time, so it's going to slow down time. You have to look at your pad and pattern out your swings in order to make sure that you're hitting him in a vulnerable area or something.
I think that would get very difficult, but that's interesting. Something I thought that would be kind of neat. At first I was thinking maybe somehow you scan the boss and you can see where weak points are, but you can't scan anything in a Zelda game. But look how much technology we've already seen in this. You've got that robot thing with the laser chasing you on the horse. You've got your arrows that have the laser tip to them.
Yeah,
it doesn't
blow up things.
Yeah. So this doesn't look like it's that medieval-ish. It looks like there is some kind of technology involved.
Well, and that's one thing that's always been out of place is the hook shot. The hook shot's a very technologically advanced thing to have in a medieval setting.
That could never actually exist.
Yeah, so
rip your arm off. Thank you, game theories.
So, who knows where they're exactly going to go with this, but I would like to see them, if it's going to be a Wii U thing, to use the pad. The thing about that is okay, so why would you give a Wii U person an advantage on the pad that if there's not going to be that on the NX, or unless you can pair your Wii U gamepad with the NX.
They'd be dumb if they made it to where you could not put the Wii U gamepad on the NX.
I think so too, especially for the limited amount of time that we've had the Wii U.
Right.
They got to reward the people that are diehard Nintendo fans that actually went out and bought this thing.
Yeah.
You would hope.
Yeah.
So, I would really like to see them do something else with the gamepad on the Zelda game other than it be a map.
I mean, pretty much what I'm figuring the gamepad is going to be is a map, and then when you
items.
Your items too. But then when you finally get the hookshot bow and arrow, you use it to adjust your aim because they seem to like that, and I think they even kind of did show that with. On that last trailer, the gameplay that they showed where Anuma's playing, he lifts his gamepad and kind of like
fine-tunes it.
Which is fine. I mean, again, it worked well for Splatoon. I think it will work for... And, I mean, didn't Wind Waker did it to a degree, I believe, didn't they?
Oh, man, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I know that there's... I know with the camera, like the camera in Wind Waker, you could do that.
Mm-hmm. I believe the bow and arrow and stuff, you didn't have to use it, but you could.
Yeah, and I might have... as much as I'm hey, go do something different with the gamepad, I might have turned the gamepad feature off for that because it got tedious. Like, I don't want to go into a dungeon full of things and be like, all right, I got to aim at you. All right, I got to aim at you. I got to aim at you. It was much easier to just be like, fire, fire, fire.
If I remember right, they didn't have it quite down to, like, again, with Splatoon. Splatoon, I thought, had it perfect. Like, it had... You kind of get your aiming to where you want it, and you just fine-tune it with the gamepad, and it's just slight movement.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. I don't think they quite had that down yet with Wind Waker.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering right. But that's what I'm expecting the gamepad's going to be used for. It's just going to be possibly fine-tuning aiming, and for the most part, your map and maybe item management.
Yeah. I wonder how interactable the world is going to be that you're in. Because, like, if you walk into, like, okay, it shows him running through the forest on, we'll say Epona, because I don't know if it actually is or not, but that's always the horse's name.
Probably going to be Epona.
So, you know, if you're running through those trees, if you were to get off of Epona and start throwing bombs in this forest, are the trees going to start falling over? Because that'd be cool.
That would be cool.
I mean, like, and that would have to be restricted, obviously. Like, you couldn't go into a forest maze that they've created and just start throwing bombs and be like, ha-ha, I don't have to do this maze at all!
Well, I went from like, oh, that's a good idea, to well, no, that's probably why that's not going to be in there. It's because there is usually some sort of forest maze, and this would defeat the purpose of it.
Yeah. I mean, unless they made bushes that you couldn't get through, which they have been known to, like in OOT, it was all, like, bush brick stuff that you couldn't get around, you couldn't do anything with, you could climb on top of, but that was really about it. So I wonder how interactable it's going to be. I wonder how, if we're going to have underwater. I mean, we've always had underwater in all the other big Zelda games. Anyway, you know, are we going to have different clothing that you have to wear in order to get different tunics? Are we going to have different items that you have to have? Are we going to have fins that help you swim? I mean, there's a lot of different stuff that they've done over the years, and I'm curious if they're just going to use stuff that they've used before, or are we going to get new stuff? Like, are we going to... Oh, but now we have a bubble mask, and that's how we swim. I don't know.
I think what they're going to do, and it seems like what they've done a lot with the Zelda series is you have some returning items, like the popular ones. Like, I don't think at this point they could completely get rid of the hookshot, bombs, bow and arrow. I can't think of anything else that's been in every game, but I think those are going to be your staples, and maybe from there you'll get some new... I think it's going to be a little bit mixture, some old, some new.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what they've been doing for a long time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the new stuff's going to be, and I'm interested to see what they bring back. Is it just going to be stuff from the last couple games, or are we going to get stuff from, like, Zelda 2?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's not the same company, but in Hyrule Warriors, it was that you had the Fire Wand come back, when was the last time we saw that weapon?
The Fire and Ice Wand, that would be A Link to the Past?
Yes.
That's the last one that I can remember it in.
Same here, so I mean, the fact that they brought that back...
I used to love playing with those things, too, in that game.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to freeze you and freeze you.
I like using it in Hyrule Warriors. But, no, I mean, I'd be really curious if, like, hey, this weapon went over really well with fans of this. Maybe we'll bring it back for the new game.
Yeah. I don't know. You think we'll have sexy fairies back?
What game have we had that they weren't in?
Well, isn't it Skyward Sword that didn't have sexy fairies? They had the big-headed, weird-looking fairies.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Like the dark... Like, they almost look like shadows.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So you think we'll have sexy fairies back?
I think so.
Yeah, we need sexy fairies. I like sexy fairies.
remember-
Even with their rectangular boobs. Or not rectangular, triangle. Rectangle boobs would be a little bit much.
I remember being a kid when I was playing Ocarina of Time, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, she's just wearing vines. If you could figure that out.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
I mean-
way back when you had...
You had to use a lot of imagination in Nintendo 64.
everything was pixelated, and you're like staring like, what is that?
Yeah. But, I mean, kind of going back to characters, I guess, do you want to have, like, the traditional, do you want to have Zelda, Link, Ganon, Impa, like, just this kind of standard cast of characters, or would you like to see somebody new?
Well, I think and again, this is one of the games that I didn't really play. Twilight Princess really didn't focus around those characters, did it?
For the most part, I mean, obviously you played as Link. Zelda was locked away. You had Midna, who was the Twilight Princess. She was the princess from the Twilight Realm.
Spoilers.
If you haven't caught on by now that we're going to be spoiling Zelda games, here you go. And, I mean, the game does trick you because it makes you think for the first half of the game that Zant is the villain.
Yeah.
But then you learn that Zant is being controlled by Ganondorf.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of, like, didn't have some of those characters, but then at the same time it did because they were still there behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And, like I said, Twilight Princess, to me, was my favorite game. I love the art style. I love the gameplay. The story, which, again, I'm not a story person, but the story... I enjoyed it. I thought it was decent. It held my attention.
Yeah.
And the gameplay was really well done. Like, I had the Wii version, so I mean, I did have to kind of like numb my wrists by swinging because it wasn't like the Skyward Sword 1-to-1. You just had to make movement and Link would swing. So I mean, I thought like that could have been assigned to a button and would have been fine.
Yeah.
But if that's my only complaint, that's not that bad of a complaint.
Yeah. I'm curious to see. Okay. Have we seen him with a fairy? Does he have a fairy in the previews?
I haven't seen one.
Okay, because I'm also curious about that. Like, who is going to be our
guide
helper?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a Midna type character, or is it going to be the fairy? Because they really haven't gone into that. And what makes me think it might be a Midna character is, like you said, there's a lot of Link in blue tunic or blue outfit, which makes me think that he hasn't got to the point that he has a guide, or maybe the guide is not with him when he's doing this and he's going to save the guide or something like that. But we don't have the annoying fairy that you want to crush into a little ball of fairy dust.
Hey, listen, look. All right. Quick question.
Navi.
Who was more annoying, Navi or Fi or Fi or whatever from Skyward Sword?
I didn't mind Fi, both of them, but that's because like you could like skip everything she said. It was like blah, blah, blah. Like most of the stuff with like what it was with her is you could walk a certain distance away or get through whatever it was, and she would stop trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
With Navi, it was like, if you're anywhere near this thing, I'm going to annoy the living piss out of you until you push the stupid up C button and talk to me.
I don't know. I got real sick of Fi. I'm going to call her Fi. Your battery percentage is running low. Do you need to change your batteries? I don't know. I just got real sick of hearing that. I mean, it was nice.
Change your batteries, man.
It was nice to have notification, but it was just it happened at the most inopportune times because it completely paused the game. She'd come out and talk to you, and it's just like, okay, fine, but just you could have just had like a light blink or something. You didn't need to like completely interrupt the gameplay.
Yeah.
Which I mean, again, if that's
and if this is Skyward Sword, is our sword going to be our guide again?
I hope not.
Fi is gone, right? Because we've turned it into the Master Sword. Fi's no longer in the sword.
Right.
So, like, maybe it's something in my bow and arrow now. That's why we're focusing on bows and arrows.
It's a talking bow and arrow.
Well, and I understand why they're focusing on the bow and arrow, because in reality, have you ever been able to beat a Ganon character other than in Skyward Sword, which focused on the sword, obviously, without a bow of some kind? You had to have light arrows. You had to have
always the light arrows or silver,
or you had to have Zelda shooting the arrow in order to distract. Or
Link to the Past, wasn't it silver arrows? Or were they light arrows?
I think it was silver.
I want to say it was silver.
But like the bow has always played a very integral part to this. That, like you said, that's one thing. That the bow and arrow is almost going to be in every game ever because
it has to be.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been in every game, to my knowledge.
Oh man, I'd have to really think on that.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that the bow has been on every game.
Like I'd have to think back of like Minish Cap and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yes. I didn't play all the Game Boy games.
Oh God, all of them. Season of Ages, Season of Oracles, all of them. I played all of them. All of them. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
I did actually like Minish Cap though. A lot of people said that guide was annoying. The hat that talked to you.
I've got that
because it like squawks.
I've got that game on my Wii U. I downloaded it. I've yet to touch it.
You should play it.
I should. I don't know why I haven't. I've just been busy and haven't had time, but I do intend to.
Yeah, it's a good game. I actually like the gameplay of that one, even though you play as Toon Link.
Yeah, after I got over my initial like hatred of the Wind Waker art style, I kind of came to like the way it looks now. I've kind of come around. It took me a long time. Because when that game first came out, I'm like, this is garbage. And I didn't even play it until the Wii U version came out.
Yeah.
And I kind of regretted it, but didn't mind at the same time. Because I feel like I got the better experience playing the Wii U one. Because they kind of tweaked a few things that I know people complained about.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that I kind of got to play the definitive version, if you will. But I do kind of regret not playing it when it came out because it was a fun game. I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's not my favorite by any means, but I don't mind it.
What was the Zelda game with the windfish?
Was it Link's Awakening?
I think so, yeah, because the whole thing is a dream.
Yeah.
Again, spoiler! From a game from fucking 1990.
1990?
That's an old game. That was one of my... I'm telling you, when I was growing up, that was my favorite game. I loved Link's Awakening.
It wasn't... I liked it. I don't know if I've ever actually beat that one, because I remember I was playing it as a kid. I was really young, and I kept getting stuck. And I remember I kept getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's like, give me Mario! But, because I just got to push left, and you win the video game. Or push right, God.
But, like, are they going to throw back to that? Like, maybe this is a dream? After you fall from Skyloft or something? Like, Link hits his head, and now we're going to just have an entire dream.
I don't think they'll do that again, because whenever I hear people talk about Zelda games, rarely do I hear that one brought up as someone's favorite.
I love that game. It's probably because that's the one that I grew up... That was my first introduction to that series, and so I played it a ton. That and A Link to the Past. I played those two games... Oh, that's hot.
I think Link to the Past was probably the one that I started out with, and then I really kind of didn't stick with the Zelda series until Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Played Ocarina of Time, I'm like, what have I been missing?
Yeah.
And then went back and I played the original, which is a fucking hard game.
Yeah, it is. You have to, like, basically, your goal for the first part of that game is, like, go die a lot so that you can level up, so that you can try to get through this freaking cave where when you finally get through it, you're going to have to go through a forest that's just going to kill you a bunch.
And the whole thing with that game is like, where do I go first and not die? And there's nowhere.
Nope. You're going to die.
You die on every screen.
The point of that game is you're going to die and you're going to like it. But that's pretty much how that goes.
I mean, it was fun. I had a good time with it. It was just, it was hard.
Yeah.
But,
now we've gotten so far away from talking about the new game, talking about old games.
I mean, it kind of fits because, I mean, they keep talking about the very first game when they bring this new one up. I mean, again, at that first E3, when they were showing footage of the first Zelda game, they're like, this is what inspired us to make this new one. And that's a good thing because, like we were just both saying, that's a great game.
Yeah. So do you think that we'll have some kind of quest list? With it being such a large open world and it being potentially easy to get extremely sidetracked on this large world, do you see us having a quest list or anything like that? Or do you think it's going to be like the other Zelda games where you just kind of have to remember what you've got to do and who said what and where to go and all this other stuff? Or do you think it'll be like Fallout where like after you talk to somebody, then there's going to be some marker on your map from what they talked about?
I hope that's how they do it, where after you talk to somebody, you're given like a description of where you're supposed to go, so you get the marker on your map. You don't get like a fast travel, you can just instantly go there or anything.
Right.
But I hope that's how they're going to do it. I hope it's not just like, hey, remember this, and then go do it.
Yeah.
Because I will get very frustrated because I will get, like you said, sidetracked on something like, oh, let's see what's over here, and then
what was I supposed to be doing?
Where did I even get this quest from?
Yeah.
If that's how they do it, I think that's just, with this big of a map, it's going to frustrate people.
Yeah.
So I think what they would do if they're smart is either a list, but I think it's going to be more of a, maybe a little bit of both. Maybe it's going to be kind of like, hey,
an interactive map.
Well, not quite that, but like, here on your map is where you're going. Here's a list of the things that you are supposed to be doing. So like maybe, I don't know. I have no idea what this game is going to do.
Click on one. It's like head east from
no,
Hyrulean Castle and whatever.
Not even that. I mean, it's marked on your map, so you can just follow your map there. But like, maybe you are doing some kind of a quest where you're supposed to be, I don't know, finding food or something for somebody, and you can do that on the way. So there's not like a specific area marked for that one, but you have like a little list of things that you're doing on the side. Like, hey, I need to be finding these or collecting this, or
I need 10 red apples.
Yeah, something to that extent. So instead of actually putting those on your map, if it's just like collection things, which, that being said, I hope this game isn't just a big fetch quest of the game. Like, hey, go find 20 of these items so you can make one of this and then find 40 of those.
Yeah, but you know, this being a Zelda game, that there's gonna be some part of that. Like, there's going to be a massive side quest to get something,
right?
Because there always is. There's like, oh, you want that flame rod there? Guess what you gotta do? Like, it's a great weapon to have, but you're gonna hate us by the time you get it.
And that's fine if there's only like a few big ones, because Ocarina had the Skullatulas, or however you're supposed to say it, and that was the only one, to my recollection, in that game.
Majora's Mask had the mail delivery and the masks.
Well, the masks, and then Twilight Princess, it was, I believe, Pose. You had to find so many Pose, and you would this guy, he
would trade them.
Well, no, you'd give him to him. He was like cursed, and if you fought so many, he would the curse would slowly start to lift.
Gotcha.
And I know in Skyward Sword, I think, was actually the biggest perpetrator of this, because there were so many things that you had to collect.
Yeah.
And there was that guy you had to trade with for stuff, and I can't remember what it was you were trading.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's well, there was like a flea market or something on Skyloft, and there was a bunch of different shops, and depending on who you traded with, you got different things.
But there was also like that monstery bat dude who was kind of like on the outside.
Oh yeah. You had to give him gems, or
I was thinking like moon crystals or something,
bat crystals or something, and eventually he would be able to turn back into a human.
Yeah,
and then he gave you something.
I think I got so frustrated with it, I didn't even bother finishing that.
I remember I did it, but I remember like getting done with it and being like, really? That's all I get? That's it?
That being said, Ocarina also you had to hunt Pose, but it wasn't that many. There was only like 10 or something like.
Yeah, and
under
then,
that.
Like, for the most part, that was like a ruby cash thing.
Right, exactly.
You go out and hunt Pose like when you really needed money, because you could get a bunch of rubies really fast doing
and none of these things are actually like required to beat the game.
Right.
I mean, Majora's Mask to a degree, if you wanted the true ending, or the fierce deity mask,
yeah.
You had to have all the masks, but you could still beat the game without it.
Right.
And like I said, I never in Twilight Princess, I think I got lost, and I'm missing 2 Pose, and I have no idea where they are, so I gave up and just said,
well, they had bugs. You catch bugs,
to collect bugs. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
for Agatha.
Yep. So I to a certain extent, especially with a map this big, there's going to be stuff that's like that. And with a map this big, I wonder how difficult it's going to be to find that kind of stuff. Like, is it going to be like you have to go out and catch bugs, and they're only in certain areas, and how much is it going to detail, or are you going to need a guide to figure out where the hell these bugs are?
That's what I'm hoping. It's going to be more or less like, find these things, but they can be anywhere in the map, so there's not like only
it's a random occurrence or something.
Well,
like
not
that.
even so much that, like, I know I keep going back to this, but like you need 10 apples, but there's apple trees everywhere throughout this world.
Gotcha.
So there's not one specific location you have to go and find apple trees. You can be going to do your quest and
like, oh, hey, an apple tree.
Yeah, and do the side quest on the way. I think that's proper game planning, is if you're given several quests, but you have your main quest, and if you're on the path to your main quest, and you could like go off to a degree. Like, let's say you're supposed to go north, well, you start going northwest, and you start finding stuff for your side quest there, but you're still traveling towards your goal. That's how a game should be set up, where you're doing side quests on the way to your main quest, so that way you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're also hitting up your side objectives, and you don't have to be doing these like this giant spiral around this huge map and get lost and frustrated and bored. Because that's another thing that I have I hope they don't do this, but I have this lingering fear that we're going to get this huge map and there's not going to be a lot in it.
Well, here's what I'm interested in, because let's say it is right after, I almost called it Skyrim, right after Skyward Sword. There's not supposed to be a lot on the map. Like, you're not going to go to this place and find like castles of people that have lived there for centuries. I mean, like,
and that's fine, but I'm saying like I want to see like traders caravanning through at certain times.
Gotcha. And how far after Skyward Sword is this? And like, I mean, how much time has there been to develop and stuff?
And we know that there are people out in the world because, again, from what we've seen, that first E3 trailer where Link's sitting there on his horse, you got the field, and you can see farmers.
Right.
With their weird goat sheep things standing around. And then when that little robot octopus thing comes running at you, they run.
Scatter.
They interact with it. So, and that kind of does show that there are going to be large, or I don't know if that's considered a boss or just a large enemy or a mini boss or whatever you want to call it. But, I mean, there are major threats on just out in the open.
Yeah.
Which, again, that's cool. But I am hoping that there are just things to do, and you're not just running through this empty world where every once in a while you come across a random moblin.
Right.
And I'm hoping that there are caravans of people who will maybe trade you goods that you could use, or even roaming parties of enemies that you can encounter it. Like, maybe they're more active at night.
Their caravans, and if you take off their caravans, then you can collect whatever they had and trade that for something.
I just don't want this to be like, hey, you're going from point A on a 15-minute journey to point B, and you see nothing on the way. It's just like, oh, look, there's another tree. Oh, that looks neat. That's a nice fence there. But there's really nothing to do. That would get real old real fast to me. And I don't know, there's just like, I have this lingering fear that that's possibly what they could do with this. Anytime I've seen a game get too big, you're going to have areas where it's just massive amounts of nothing, but just travel.
Right.
And I would get real tired of that real quick.
Yeah. One thing I'm really, really excited to see too is, and this kind of goes back to where in the timeline does it fall, is the sophisticated NPC creatures. So, like, you had Zoras, you had... You know, you have to have... why can't I think of the rock people?
The Gorons.
You have to have Gorons because they've shown that Gorons do not change. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one thing that they've put in games throughout different timelines to show that those don't evolve. Like, even in Wind Waker, there's Gorons.
Right.
So the
Zoras have evolved very basically.
Well, in Wind Waker, Zoras turn into the bird people.
That's true. That is true.
So they do evolve and change.
I said throughout the other games, like, there's minor differences, but
right.
I guess Wind Waker is the big one where they are no longer, I guess, fish people.
Evolution made no sense to me. Like,
I completely forgot about it.
The world is finally water.
So now we can
water. So now we need to get rid of the fact that we could live anywhere.
Maybe that was like Nintendo's just like, yeah, we don't know how to incorporate.
Yeah, how are we going to incorporate Zoras into this?
The birds.
So, I mean, I'm very interested to see where it falls in the timeline.
Zoras are dinosaurs that evolve backwards.
Oh my god. That'd be sweet to have, like, a dinosaur race.
Like Liz, well, I mean, we already do have, like, the Liz Follows or whatever they're called.
And maybe it could be, like, a sophisticated version of those that actually they've gained consciousness? Well, I guess they've always been conscious. They've evolved into an intelligent enough being to realize that they shouldn't be used for whatever they're being used for.
A bunch of passed out lizards
with swords in their hands.
No, I know what you mean. Like, they're no longer like servants. They formed their own society and they've broken away.
See, that would be
maybe
really
they're like
neat.
They're mercenaries now. Like, they're not necessarily bad, but
they're paid for hire.
The villain can hire them, but you can also hire them to work for you. Like, hey, I want you to. I don't know. I've never seen a co-op Zelda, but I'm just saying.
No, but that'd be neat if you could. If you could be like, you've got certain quests that you can hire out, and you can go to different factions. Like maybe there's a set of moblins. There's a city of moblins. There's a city of Lizophos. There's a city of different things that you could go to and potentially hire out these groups of people to do certain things for you.
You get to the lizard town, they're all passed out.
I'm sorry I said unconscious, right? Or gain consciousness. You know what I meant.
I know. This is funny. I can't remember what I was going to say now.
But I'm very interested to see where they go with that kind of stuff. Because you've seen the evolutions of the Deku sprouts, I guess you call them that, because they always live around the Deku tree. Right. There's Deku trees, and then they have Deku nuts. That sounds so bad. But I mean, I guess that's what they come from, right? Yes. The Deku tree has Deku nuts, and that's where all the Deku sprites come from. Ah, God.
But do you think like we'll see Skull Kids again? Because they've kind of been in. They were obviously in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. A version of them were in Twilight Princess. Did we see anything? Were they in? Skyward Sword.
Oh man, not that I can.
I don't remember them being in it.
But there was in it.
And again, in Twilight Princess, there was just like a cameo of one. So you're on your way to find the Master Sword.
And if you remember from OOC, they say that Skull Kids are just Kokiri, however you want to say it. They're those type of kids that get lost in the woods. They lose their fairy,
right,
and that's how they become Skull Kids. So, like, are we gonna meet Kokiri? Because the Kokiri come from timeline. So they come from the Deku nuts that come from the Deku plants that come from, all these things that evolve into other things. So, including little elf children, which is weird.
Well, and something that's kind of neat, and this has really nothing to do with what we were just talking about, but in Twilight Princess, which I forgot what timeline that one even takes place in, but I know it's after Ocarina, there's actually slight references that Skull Kid, which looks completely different than the Skull Kid that you saw in Ocarina, but it's still a Skull Kid. It is actually playing Saria's song as it's running through the woods, so there's this illusion that it is the Skull Kid. Or potentially Saria, who's turned into
a Skull Kid. Well, she couldn't because she was a sage.
Yeah,
a sage can't turn into
or
a
maybe
Skull
somebody
Kid.
from that village then, or possibly
maybe it was the bully. That'd be revenge.
Or possibly Link from that time frame.
Oh, because he failed, and so he became.
Again, I can't remember which timeline that those games are in, Kid Link eventually something had to happen to him.
Yeah. So that's where Majora's Mask comes in, is he couldn't be that Skull Kid because he fights.
Well, I'm not saying that Skull Kid. I'm saying the one in Twilight Princess.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because that's the one that it's playing Saria's song as it's running through the woods. I mean, that could potentially there's a whole list of things that could potentially be. It could be Link. It could be the Skull Kid from that game. It could be someone from that village who knew Saria because it knows her song.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of it'd be neat to have in this game some kind of an Easter egg or reference to the older games, but it would depend on where in the timeline it's in of what they could do with it.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, I'm extremely excited for this game. I hope we don't have to wait forever for it.
Well, and that's one last thing that I want to talk about is, did you read Reggie's comments about why they didn't show it?
Yes.
Basically, what Reggie said, the reason they didn't show Zelda at this E3 2015 was they didn't want to show games that are in the distant future. They wanted to show games that are only in the near future.
Which is why they showed it last year.
And Reggie answered. He said, well, the reason we showed it last year is we thought it was going to be a near future game. And I'm like, okay, but you've shown Xenoblade for 3 E3s in a row, Yoshi's Woolly World for 2.
Yep.
And if you keep saying that this is going to be a 2016 game, why can't you show it at E3 2015 and 2016?
If that's what you're going to do. Well, And again, that really makes me think that it's going to be an NX thing, because 2016 is going to be when they announce the NX and
they're going to
what
announce
it's
it
going to be
at that E3
and all that kind of stuff. And nothing is going to hook people more than if you say NX, here it is, here's what it does. Oh, and by the way, the release title with it is that Zelda game we've been hyping for 3.5 years.
See, the only thing though is I have a firm belief that this Zelda game is going to come out in November. Whatever year that they release it, it's going to come out in that November, because that's what they have always done.
So you see the NX as being a November release as well?
Well, here's the thing. If Zelda U comes out in 2016, like they're currently saying, it's going to be November 2016. But if they're not going to announce the NX until that E3, do you think they'll say, oh, here's our next console, it's coming out this year? Or do you think they're going to push the NX to 2017? Because I've been thinking it's going to be 2017.
If I was Nintendo, I would do it the same year, because here's the thing. As much as build-up can help a console coming out, it never helps Nintendo.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you go to 2016 and say, okay, well, here's the console we're coming out with 2017, that gives Xbox or Microsoft and PlayStation so much time to go, oh, that's what you're doing. All right. Here's what we're going to do.
We're going to integrate it into our things now.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I believe Iwata said that in one of their more recent developer updates or whatever they call it. They said that they're not giving any details on the NX right now because they don't want anyone else to steal their ideas.
Right.
So that potentially could work.
Because if they announce it, and then think about it. All right. You've got this thing, plus it's coming out with Zelda. Then you say, all right, by the way, you only have to wait 4 months, and then you can have it. You're going to be pre-ordering it like as soon as he gets off the TV. You're going to be like all this other stuff.
Yeah,
you're going to have
they make the
reaction.
announcement. Pre-order now.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be a huge thing for them. Whereas if you said a year and a half, it's like, okay, well, I can't even order it for another year.
Right.
What,
Again, if they're smart and they do what I want them to do, they'll announce it at E3. Pre-orders open now. It's coming out this holiday 2016.
Yep.
And that would make sense, because if they're going to do Zelda U and NX at the same time, it would have to be holiday 2016, or they're going to push Zelda back again to 2017 to pair up with the NX. I mean, I hope that's not the case. And I mean, if that is the case, like if what they do decide to do is NX comes out 2017, Zelda U comes out now, I think that would hurt them if they do try to push the NX with Zelda. So I don't know. I can see them kind of going in different ways with this. I hope they do like what you were saying. Hey, this is our next system. It's coming now.
Well, and here's the thing is, the hype for Zelda, they've already come out with the Smash Brothers. They've already come out with, all the other titles that they come out with this year for the Wii U and stuff that have been successes for them. That means that in the next 2 years, we're not going to, other than the Zelda game that's coming out, they're not going to hurry up and push another Zelda game out for a new console. They're not going to, they may push out a Mario game, but it's going to be the same Mario game that we've been getting with just new levels. Come on. That's
you're not wrong at all.
So, I mean, it's, what else are you going to have? Star Fox is already coming. You can't, there's only so much stuff that you're going to get people hyped about, and Zelda is the biggest hyper. So if you want to sell a console, it needs to come out with that. If you want it to come out and people not get pissed about how long they have to wait for it now, it needs to come out in 2016.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope that that's what they're going to do. I'm scared that they're going to do what Nintendo usually does, and that's what they shouldn't do.
Yeah, well,
which is like
Nintendo does whatever the hell it wants,
and they think they can get away with it. And I'm hoping what they did with the Wii U shows them that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
but we'll see on that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess that is it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about Zelda?
Oh, like 9.5.
Oh, good. I'm 12.
So I just like really the only thing that I'm not that has me worried is, are we just going to get this huge map and nothing on it? Like that. Yeah. That is the only thing that's not got me at a 12 out of 10 rating for this. I'm just like, I'm excited, but I have this fear that I'm going to be let down by that, because I've had games do that. I've had games like they promise this huge map, and you walk onto the map, and they're like, well, there's nothing to do.
You don't want a Wind Waker.
Pretty much, because
you don't want a original Wind Waker, I should say, which is a lot of travel. Like, I'm going to push the control stick in this direction and eat a pizza while I'm doing it because this is ridiculous.
And, yeah, like I said, I did like Wind Waker. I like the one that I played. But even that, the sailing got a little tedious, even though you're like...
that you had the fast sail cloth.
Yeah, you had the fast sail.
You never played it without the fast sail cloth. But it was horrible.
What I would do, I would line myself up in the direction I needed to go, start going to it, and then do something else while I traveled, and then I'd look over occasionally. No, I still got about 5 minutes.
Yeah, haven't hit the island yet. Haven't beached myself on the island yet. So, all right, guys. What do you think we're gonna see in the new Zelda game? What would you like to see in the new Zelda game?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Think about old weapons, like Scott was saying, the ice and fire wands that are of old. Think of old weapons. The boomerang we haven't seen in a while. Well, I guess we got the wind boomerang thing was the last one that we had. But I mean, think of weapons that we haven't seen in a long time, and tell us which ones you'd like to see. We'd be very curious to hear about them.
Well, and if you can think of new weapons, like what would you like to see?
Yeah.
Like, can you think of anything that would fit into the Zelda universe that would be cool that we haven't seen before?
You want an axe to go chop down some trees? I don't know. But let us know in the comments. We will respond and let you know what we think.
Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the IdiotSpeak podcast number 8, part 3.
Tres. Ocho tres.
On this edition of podcast 8, I keep